We're live now, Dave.
Are we live?
We're live.
The lights just came on.
Can you believe this? We're live. This is the first time we've done this.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. Like they can see what we're saying as we're saying it right now.
Hey guys, so you are our test audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you hear us? Is either of our mics too hot? I might be a little bit too close to this microphone, so let us know. Okay, we're waiting for a comment. We're just going to sit here like idiots. And
yeah, there we go. Will someone comment, please?
Yeah,
comment.
man, it's happening. All right, so
oh, there's one.
What does it say?
Do you hear me? Do you care?
That wasn't helpful. Thank you for not being helpful. We expect that out of you. Oh, well.
Sounds good. Yes, we hear you. Awesome, guys.
All right. Are we about more or less balanced?
Yeah, I think so. Good.
Okay,
they hear
good.
us. Yeah, so it's the first time going live. We want to talk about something that I sent to Dave, but a buddy of mine, Robbie Robertson, sent to me, and it's the Time article.
It's Time Magazine.
Time Magazine. They're talking about their secrecy behind how they've basically got Donald Trump defeated in this last election, and it's unbelievable. It really is.
It really is. You want me to read the opening of the Time article?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so basically they're just detailing all the stuff that went on behind the scenes. So I'm just going to read a little bit. A weird thing happened right after the November 3rd election. Nothing. The nation was braced for chaos. Liberals allowed to take to the streets, planning hundreds of protests across the country. Right-wing militias were girding for battle. You remember how you guys were girding for battle?
Right.
In a poll before Election Day, 75% of Americans voiced concern about violence. Instead, by the way, 73.1% were concerned about Democrats being violent.
That's right.
Instead, an eerie quiet descended as President Trump refused to concede. The response was not mass action, but crickets. When media organizations called the race for Joe Biden on November 7, jubilation broke out instead as people thronged cities across the U.S., dancing and hugging to celebrate the democratic process that resulted in Trump's ouster. Have we given them a link to this? Is there a way to do that?
I put a link in the description.
There's a link in the description if you want to read along. We're not going to read the whole damn thing, but I just thought I'd get a flavor of it. A second odd thing happened amid Trump's attempts to reverse the result. Corporate America turned on him. Hundreds of major business leaders, many of whom had backed Trump's presidency and supported his policy, called on him to concede. To the president, something felt amiss. Okay, this is Trump, in quotes. It was all very strange, Trump said on December 2nd. Within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner, even while many key states were being counted. In a way, Trump was right, says Time. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans.
Who could those business titans be?
I don't know.
I don't know who they're talking about.
The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and AFL-CIO published on Election Day. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain, inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive, but mostly peaceful racial justice protests, in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. So it goes on and on. Where does it say that it was a cabal?
Here's the bottom of that intro goes like this. That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told, even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions. That's exactly what they did. Change rules and laws. That's what they did.
They did that.
Steer media coverage. That's what they did. Control the flow of information. That's
what they really did that.
They were not rigging the election. They were fortifying it.
Hear that, guys? They were fortifying the election. These people are noble.
Right. And the worst part of it is...
And they believe the public needs to understand the system's fragility.
That's right.
I think they've just demonstrated the system's fragility by rigging this damned election through legal means.
That's right. So basically this whole article goes between talking about this conspiracy of all these people to get Donald Trump elected, and at the same time sparsing in there, because we're trying to save a democracy. We're trying to make sure every vote counts, right?
Yes.
But they talk about changing the election laws. I mean, here, check this out. So I've made a couple notes here. When it talks about securing the vote, there's a section that says securing the vote. And that's the title of it. And the first thing it says is, the first task was overhauling America's bulky election infrastructure. That was securing the vote.
Well, this is bulky, meaning that it has, problems.
Correct. But
it's also bulky.
You're not securing it, you're changing it.
Yes.
See, that's the way they do this whole article. Right. They talk about how, they were saving democracy. They were securing the election by changing the entire election so that they could get Joe Biden elected. It's ridiculous.
Yes, and they through this whole article, they're trying to come from the place where it was a bipartisan effort. They have one guy in here named Zach. What's his name? Zach something, and he's a guy who they're holding up as the Republican that was involved. He's a former Republican staffer or congressional something. And his name is
it doesn't. They'll find it. You guys will find his name in the article.
Yeah, Zach. Forgive us for not reading the comments. It's kind of far away from us. I can't read them.
Well, there's a ton of them, and there's a ton of them going by.
But thank you for doing that. We'll get better at this. If we do it, if we ever do it,
if we try again, yeah.
But they did, and they said that he joined together with different people on a Zoom call, like 20 different people from the Republican Party, but these are just people who were left leaning and right leaning. So apparently there was a small group of this thing, which was done somewhat like Braver Angels has done, where you have an equal number of each, but every organization that they mention in here are left-wing organizations.
That's right.
So then they're seeing the chambers of the Chamber of Commerce of the United States coming together, and they say that's representing capital, and AFL-CIO, which is representing labor. But what really the Chamber of Commerce is all those businesses on main streets all over the country that didn't want their windows smashed out and all their stuff stolen again.
Right.
They weren't doing this because they wanted to help somebody other than Trump get elected. They were doing this because they were scared shitless of what would happen if Trump won.
Right.
So in other words, they were the businesses were just threatened all summer long. They were threatened. And I told you guys that I was down meeting with the woman from Braver Angels the day before the election in downtown LA. I was invited to go have lunch down there, and we dined on a rooftop, so we could actually dine.
You could see all the boarded up buildings down below, or what?
And I walked around. I did that video about there. I walked around about 2 blocks, and there were dozens and dozens of businesses that were completely boarded up. And that was not because they were afraid of militia groups girding for battle.
Well, the article says an eerie calm happened.
Yes.
An eerie calm, because later in this article, what it says is that they had to talk at 11 o'clock at night on election night to the people they had lined up to go out in the streets the next day if it didn't go their way. So they had them lined up, ready to go in the streets to cause a ruckus. And they even talk about, they know that kind of stuff leads to violence, and they didn't want to do that because now Joe was winning. They thought he was going to win. They didn't want to do that because then Trump could come in and say, hey guys, look at all the violence, look at the stuff. See, they're trying to steal the election. That's what they did. So they called off the dogs. And they talk about it in this article as if they were the good guys protecting the election integrity.
Exactly. And those were tens of thousands of people, undoubtedly, who would have gone into the streets and broken a lot of windows, and hopefully the Nikes would have been restocked by then from the summer fun. And so there would have been all kinds of riots and all kinds of people hurt and all kinds of businesses. So I mean, of course, the National Chamber of Commerce was gonna cooperate with these people,
wouldn't they?
And because what they were saying was, let's make sure every vote gets counted of the new election mechanism that these Democrat organizations have put into place.
Right, without the state legislatures voting on them, all unconstitutionally, right? They don't mention that, of course. That paragraph that I'm reading is toward the end about this. It says they're doing a Zoom call with the architect, who we'll talk about in a second. The conversation that followed was a difficult one, led by the activists charged with protest strategy. They had activists in charge of protest strategy. We want to be mindful when was the right time to call for moving masses of people into the street. As much as they were eager to mount a show of strength, mobilizing immediately could backfire and put people at risk. Protests that devolved into violent clashes would give Trump a pretext to send federal agents or troops and blah, 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 like the summer. Like, they had it planned. They were all, think about this, these groups were on a Zoom call 11 o'clock at night on election night. And they said the tough part was we had to decide, do we call in the masses of people to go on the streets and protest? They tell us all summer long that this was all grassroots. These were just people who were fed up, showing up. And then now we learn in this article that they admit to it, because they have to get credit for what they've done. They can't shut up and just be secretive anymore. They have to get credit for what they've done. And that's what they're doing here. And they're blowing the whole thing. They're blowing it wide open for everybody to see.
Right. And this is a further threat as well to any Republican who's thinking of challenging them. I mean, one of they talk in this article about how, government failing to they wanted the federal government to help them send all the voting rigmarole out. And they're doing such things as putting, we're going to put little sanitary kits together with masks and some some paperwork about how to vote from home. We want the federal government
to pay for
all of this.
Right.
And so they said, but luckily,
Mark Zuckerberg,
the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation gave him $300 million. So that's Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, whose last name is Chan. Her name is, I forget what her first name is.
I don't know.
But they have, apparently that's the largest, the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation is apparently the largest charitable organization in the world now in terms of its funding, because Mark Zuckerberg put 99% of their wealth into that. Right. So I'm sure that they're both paid through that.
Right. Well,
several $1 million.
Well, that steps around the taxes.
Yeah,
right?
Steps around the taxes.
You put $60 billion into that. You just pay yourself out of that, and then all that $60 billion doesn't have to go to the government.
This is the noble Mark Zuckerberg, who wants to make sure that all the big government people win every time, has protected all but 1% of his wealth by putting it into the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation.
That's right.
It's the greatest first initial funding of any charitable organization in history.
He even talked about it and said that, you guys don't understand. I'm giving it all back. I've put all of my money into charity.
Yeah.
Right? See, we don't understand because he is the best to decide what he does with his money.
Right.
But for some reason, we're not the best people to decide what we do with our money.
Yes, this is quite a remarkable. And then they talk about this woman who joins in. Her name is McAllister or something. Boy, it's such a long.
It's a really long.
Oh, piece. McReynolds. Her name is McReynolds, and she's the one that has a 2-year-old organization called something The Vote. It's the Vote from Home organization, and that's her whole thing. But it turns out, and she calls it a bipartisan organization. But when you check on but I checked her out to see. I went to Influence Watch. And here it says that while its claims that vote-by-mail policies are nonpartisan, Vote at Home is a partner of a number of progressive and left-of-center organizations, including Democracy Fund, Common Cause, Nonprofit Vote, Rock the Vote. It's also a partner in Unite America. So these are all progressive organizations. And the guy, Mike Podhorst, who supposedly put together this wonderful bipartisan attempt to fortify the election, this guy is what I've got him right here on Wikipedia.
He's like a 25-year veteran.
So he's
elected Democrats, right?
Yeah, no, he has been the political director for the AFL-CIO for 25 years. So he's been working for unions forever. And but he also sits on the board. It says here, Podhorst has worked in progressive politics since 1976. Prior to the AFL, he was associated with Citizens Action and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. So those are all other union things. He is also the chairman of the board of both the Analyst Institute, which is a progressive analytic thing, and Catalyst, which is one of the biggest progressive election vote manipulating people that there are. He serves on the board of America Votes, Committee of the States, Progressive Majority. So he is a board member of a ton of these things. And they mention him in this thing that he did most of this on a laptop in his apartment.
Right.
He was in his apartment.
Doing Zoom calls because he cared about the integrity of the election.
Yes.
Right?
And never arrested this patriot.
They even say later on, so they paint him as the guy who saved the democracy. He's the architect behind it. He wants a fair election. And they even say stuff like, it didn't matter who wins the election. They just wanted every vote to count and all this nonsense. Then later on in the article, it says Pod, they just called him Pod instead of Podhorzer. Pod played a critical behind-the-scenes role in keeping different pieces of the movement infrastructure in communication and aligned, says Maurice Mitchell, National Director of the Working Families Party. You have the litigation space, the organizing space, the political people just focused on the W, and their strategies aren't always aligned.
That's the win, right?
The win. He allowed this ecosystem to work together. Okay, so that's the end of that paragraph. The very next paragraph starts with, protecting the election would require an effort of unprecedented scale. No, you just told us what he was doing. He got all these groups together to get the W, to get the win.
That's what it was.
And then they go, the next thing, they go, oh, yeah, because he wanted to protect the election. He did not want to protect the election. He wanted Joe Biden to win.
Winning it.
And this whole article just blows it wide open. But they're so disingenuous. They try every now and then to just throw that in there. But because we care about elections. We wanted to change the election laws constitutionally because we care about elections.
Well, and this whole article is also, it's written in that it's Molly, whatever it is, the woman who wrote this article. She uses this NPR speak, which is that they say, well, in spite of all Donald Trump's attempts to derail the election or whatever, but tell us one of them. Give us an example. And it goes all the way through and never gives us an example of Donald Trump doing any of these things that they knew he was going to do or knew he was doing behind the scenes. But they say in the NPR technique is to say something in such a way that everybody listening who has not done any research for themselves will say, well, they said it so casually, it must be well proven.
It's common knowledge.
Everybody knows common knowledge,
right?
So you're just going to take it in. But if you try to give an example, well, it falls apart because the example, people go, well, that's kind of him maybe in a sense trying to control things, and they just call it, like president who leans toward authoritarianism or whatever.
Right, that's what they do. The whole article.
It's all the way through this article, and it's kind of amazing because my conservative parents took Time magazine when I was a kid, and it's sort of amazing that how blatantly they're expressing the fact that they're progressives now. My phone is going off. Yeah. Are you calling me?
No, I'm not. Yeah. Hey, Dave. Yes, we're live right now. Let's hang up your phone.
Let's take a couple questions.
No, I don't think they can hear it anyway, but
okay, the phone has given up. The phone gave up. Can we at least act like we know what we're doing here and try to take a couple of questions?
I don't know if we can.
If anybody wants to do like a super chat,
I don't even know how to do that.
You could. It's like whatever the minimum is. We'll answer a question for $1.
I don't even know I don't even know how that works.
Because I remember I got to split $1 with Jason.
I don't even know how that works.
I don't know what it is either. Hang on. I have to go on by pretty quick.
Yeah, it's
how many people are watching?
We got like 1,300 people or something.
We have 1,300 people watching us.
Pretty crazy.
You know, one thing I just want to tell you guys, if you encourage such shoddy behavior, we'll do this more often. So,
well, actually, today, just to step off for a second from what we're talking about, we shot a video for Dave today.
We shot a video today.
So we're working, and then because I sent him this article that a friend of mine sent me. He's like, we should do one of those live things. And it's like, okay, how do we sit? Where do we go? Do I have to clean up my garage?
Yeah, this was yesterday.
This is yesterday
about this time.
Evening or something,
something
right?
like that.
Right
we
before
decided
work.
To do it.
And
but
then
I did want to tell you guys about the video that we've got coming out tomorrow, because, like 2 years ago, I did this whole thing where I did 4 videos, one each week for Black History Month. And, that's kind of a favorite topic of mine. It's something that really gets my ire up, the way that they use the Black Americans as basically voting livestock. It's basically they just keep them in this pen and they release them once a year or release them whenever they need to. A black guy died. A white cop? Totally. Okay, it's time for rioting, whatever. What's an election year? We'll go full blown on it, whatever. But the video has nothing to do with that. It's 6 simple steps to end racism once and for all. And I worked on it all week. I mean, there hasn't been any videos up by me all week, but I was working on this thing because my problem is not writing. My problem is writing briefly, because once I get going, one thing leads to another. And before I know it, I've got 4,000 words, and I'm going, oh yeah, people are going to flock to watch this, in 19-minute disaster.
Right.
But it's going to be a fairly large video. I don't know what it's going to be, probably something like 13 or 14 minutes, but there's a clip and some data in there and things like that. But I think it's going to be a really good video. So I hope some of you will watch it.
Hey, just going to say, I saw a comment that said the super chat's not on. So that's
super chat's not on.
It's not turned on. See, we don't know what we're doing.
They're just saying that because they don't want to.
They don't want to pay.
They don't want to pay.
No, I would set it up now, but I really don't know. Next time we'll do this a little bit better. Getting back to the article real quick, I just want to say
I blame Jason when these things happen because
I'm the technical guy.
He's younger.
I should know it.
They always tell me either ask Jason or ask your Asian neighbor. That's usually the people.
You should have went with the Asian neighbor.
I should have asked Abraham. How does this work?
That's right. So I'm going to go back to that article just for a second. I know we're kind of all over the place, but at the end, toward the end, it says it was his final attack on democracy. That's about Trump and January 6th and whatever, and it failed, blah, blah, blah. We won by the skin of our teeth. Honestly, that's an important point for folks to sit with, says the Democracy Defense Coalition's Peoples is her name. There's an impulse for some to say voters decided and democracy won, but it's a mistake to think that this election cycle was a show of strength for democracy. It shows how vulnerable democracy is.
Do they ever mention our republic in that anywhere?
I know.
It's democracy all the way through, right?
They couldn't be more right about how fragile it was because they stole the election.
Yes.
They were able to switch laws without
a good point.
Without doing it the right way. Mm-hmm. They were able to hold back stories like the Hunter Biden's laptop. They were able to hold that back. The Ukraine stuff, they were able to hold back. In this article, it actually says in one part, I'll have to read it. It says
the way that they blatantly say they were able to control the flow of information.
It's unbelievable, right?
They think they're proud of this.
Right. So here, check this out. I'll read a couple more things. It says the effort had to overcome heightened skepticism in some communities. Many black voters preferred to exercise their franchise in person or didn't trust the mail. National civil rights groups worked with local organizations to get the word out that this was the best way to ensure one's vote was counted. The best way was to send it by mail. That's not going and doing it yourself and drop it in the box. Right. That's not the best way. The best way is to give it to somebody because we've never heard anything.
Well, again, this is one of the things that they're dealing with and they mentioned this. They said that Zuckerberg had a bunch of civil rights leaders over to his private home.
That's what I'm going to go with next. Yeah.
Right. you know, they make this assumption that they have to make things super, super easy for Black people, or Black people won't vote. So this is really aimed at the Black community. And, you know, they do so much to make sure that the Black community is helpless, that now they're assuming that they're also too helpless to vote.
That's right. They can't show up. Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, since we've basically kicked the spokes out of every bit of their community, now we got to go in and drag their community to the voting booth. Well, that's too much work. So we got to get the ballots to their house
directly to them.
Plus,
and we'll pick it up. We'll put a box on your corner. You can go drop it in right in front of your house, and then we'll pick that up for you guys.
Yeah, and all we want is the federal government to pay for all the boxes on the corners. Right. And it's
so check this out. So after they said, which is a lie, that voting by mail is the absolute best way to make sure your vote's counted. That's obviously a lie. We know that. We've all had things lost in the mail. We've all read stories about ballots being thrown away and so on. It says, in November of 2019, Mark Zuckerberg invited 9 civil rights leaders to dinner at his home, where they warned him about the danger of the election-related falsehoods that were already spreading unchecked. So after they have this meeting about stopping these falsehoods, they push a falsehood so that they can get Black people to vote by mail and not just not show up and then not vote, right? So and now get this. It took pushing, urging, conversations, brainstorming, and all of that to get to a place where we ended up with more rigorous rules and enforcement, says Vanita Gupta, the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, who attended the dinner and also met with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and others. Then it says in parentheses, Gupta has been nominated for Associate Attorney General by President Biden. This is someone who went and met with Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, talked about how can we stop all this information that's going to hurt you getting elected. Now she's going to be rewarded for it.
Or he. Is it he or she?
Oh, Vanita. I just assumed it's a woman. I don't even know. Vanita, it's a name I've never heard before.
Also named Gupta. So, this is one of these. This is what's happening with, you know, for a very long time. I keep saying, the idea that, you know, be careful who you think is a socialist, because there is no place in the world where capitalism is less in charge than Silicon Valley, which is the San Francisco mafia. You know, and Southern California has more and more too. The gaming industry is now, and I don't mean, you know, casinos, I mean, you know, game playing on is now headquartered in Southern California. You have 27 different game manufacturers in Southern California now, and they're all in Santa Monica, otherwise known as the People's Republic of Santa Monica. So these people are anything but socialists. And the reason that they can say they're socialists, the reason they say they're socialists is because they want to keep the Democrats from going down their neck. So when they're talking about titans of industry or business titans, I don't see any mention of any oil companies or anything.
Of course not.
All I see is mentions like Twitter and Facebook. Right. So what they're talking about, industry in that sense, you know, business titans, they're talking about Zuckerberg and all those and Jack Dorsey. That's who they're talking about. So this is this giant, enormous thing. And these people have nothing to fear from Democrats, because Democrats can't, because they don't produce any carbon. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all electrons. And so they can grow as big as they want and take it over in the entire world. And as long as they keep throwing a few $100 million at Democrats every time the Democrats need to fortify an election.
Right.
Then they're good to go.
Well, you also got to take into consideration, like, somebody will ask me every now and then, like, when the internet, what was it called? Internet equality? No, internet, when they wanted to make it fair for everyone, they said, and Google was for it and Facebook was for it. They said, why are these guys for it? It's like, because these guys.
Yeah. What do they call that? It was the internet thing, though.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head. But why would they be for it? Why would Google be for it? They would ask me, because Google then gets to be on top with working with government with all these big things, and they get to stay on top. They get to have the power. So think about it. We got Google now is working directly with the Biden, I should say, Biden's administration,
right,
to make sure we're getting the right information.
That's right.
Right. To make sure we're not talking about things we shouldn't be talking about. So Google ain't going to go anywhere in a place like that. They're going to continue to be on top and make billions and billions and billions of dollars, right? So yes, they vote for socialist systems or talk about socialist issues because those issues give the government more power over us, and that keeps them in power. Right? Like the time to become a communist country, if you're a billionaire, would be the time you're on top of your game, because you're going to still be the billionaire. They're not going to take your money. They're going to work with you.
Yeah. Well, how is it that you put that in a couple of videos? They're for socialism for you.
Right.
They're not for socialism for them.
They're for crony capitalism for themselves.
It's like somebody gave them the collected works of George Orwell, and they thought it was a how-to manual.
Yeah, make it happen.
They didn't realize this. No, this is a cautionary tale.
Make it happen.
You're supposed to be very afraid of this. And they're going, oh, that's interesting to read. Oh, some people are more equal than others. Oh, okay. They're reading. Oh, I see. So the pigs are now eating at the family dining table. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah. They're emulating the stuff that Orwell was warning us about, right? Warning us against.
No, this article, I suggest you guys go and read it. It really lays out exactly what they did. They, like I said, they had all the people ready to march in the streets, cause a ruckus if they didn't win, and then they start off the piece with, it was eerie that no one went to the streets. It's like, oh yeah, in the article, at the end of the article, you tell us, you said don't go in the streets.
Yeah. And where were the militias girding for battle?
There were none. Of course there were none.
What suddenly there's the militias. It was so strange the militias didn't break out the wind. There was no militias.
That's right. There was no one waiting in the wings to do anything. It's the piece is so eye-opening, and it's so full of their arrogance.
Yes, it's
that they want to get all the credit for what they've done, and then they try to spin it in this way, like, no, we didn't really conspire to steal the election. We wanted a fair election, but boy, we wanted Biden to win, man. And you're like, well, you just said a paragraph ago that it was about fair elections. Now you switch it that you were in a Zoom call with 100 people, and all of them from left-wing organizations that were working to get Trump defeated. Don't get me started.
I think you've already been started.
I've started.
Oh man,
it's frustrating.
Well, I remember in 2016, for a brief shining moment there was once Donald Trump was elected, and then there's some honest people on the other side of the aisle, many of whom are now podcasters who are trying to take down Wokeistan, what they call the Wokeistan. The thing is, they call it the division is between Wokeistan and Magastan, or Magastan, or Wokeistan and Trumpistan. That's the way it's broken down on some of the podcasts. But the podcast universe is largely the stars of it now many of them are progressives who are really fighting tooth and nail against all of this woke nonsense. And so, but there was a brief shining moment there in 2016 where a lot of, honest liberals were able to self-reflect and say, we really have been completely ignoring the working class. This is a wake-up call to us. But there's nothing in this article that was any sort of reach out to the working class, unless you're considering the AFL-CIO. I mean, what is it? 7% of people of blue-collar workers now are unionized now.
Yeah,
and the AFL-CIO is not the powerful organization it used to be, and largely because they represent only Democrats.
Well, I would say I wouldn't mind if they would ignore us, as long as they would also leave us alone.
Yeah.
Right? They won't leave us alone. That's what we really want. Go ahead, ignore us. But leave us alone. They ignore what we want, but then they tell us what we have to want or what we have to do. And that's the real issue, I think.
Well, the way they kidnap you and they lock you in a closet, and the way they ignore you is to ball gag you.
That's right.
You know, suddenly right. I don't hear the screaming.
That's right.
You know, so yeah, but we're back exactly where we were with the smug left. That's now right. They're going to go right back to completely forsaking working class Americans.
That's right.
And we're going to go right back to where it was. And the only thing that I can think that's the upside of that, and I've said this in a couple of videos already, the attitude of Donald Trump to call people out, to stand up to this stuff, that has changed the Republicans forever, I think. And I know a lot of you guys are really pissed off right now. I'm getting, you know, I can't even go on the threads of my own videos, you know, without hearing what a communist I am. You know, so there's a lot of overreaction going on. I know it's probably not you guys, but it's I'm certainly getting, I mean, even private emails. People get my email and then they, you know, I get a big screed about how we knew you were just a, you know, an imposter or whatever. But once things calm down, we're going to realize that the next batch of Republicans coming along, withstanding a few who are sort of QAnon types, we're going to see a lot who see themselves as the next generation of more Trump-like politics on the right. And for many years, you've heard so many hosts like Rush and Dennis Prager and people like that say the only problem with conservatives is we don't fight. And see, the people that come out of the colleges, they've been told that the way you change the world is through legislation. We've been told that the way you change the world is that you have a family and kids, and you teach them really good values, and you coach Little League, and you join the PTA, and when your neighbor needs help, damn it, you reach out and you help them. We're taught that. Mm-hmm. They are taught, no, you care about your neighbor down the street, so you try to pass legislation that'll take care of neighbors down the street.
While your neighbors down the street are saying, yeah, I don't need your help right now.
They come to the door and you're on the phone. I'm calling my congressperson. Hold still. Right. Help is on the way.
Right.
You know, they want to do everything they want to loop all of their caring. And many of them are caring people. But they've been told,
liberals, yeah.
They've been told that the way things get done and the way that we have a better society is that we have better political
collectivism.
Yes,
by creating this collectivist society that takes care of everybody, and that's how you do it. When in reality, by trying to take care of everyone, you're allowing everyone to not take care of themselves, and we just get worse and worse and worse.
But they're going to keep being this way. So one of the things that we're going to have to do, among the things that we're going to have to do as we see the more ambitious, the good communicators in the high school and the good communicators that you know in your service organizations around town and things like that, you're going to say, you know, politics is a worthy thing too. And we tend to say, you know, hey, if you want to change the world, be a job creator. And that certainly is a way to change the world. But we're going to have to be more engaged in politics in the next generation.
I think that's true.
Because they're going to keep doing it.
Right. I think that's true. The sad part is we got no one who's standing up for the Constitution, or we do have some, but for the most part, they're drowned out by all the people, swamp Republicans, swamp Democrats, that just want to keep pushing a law to change things when the idea was that, hey, the federal government will do these few things and we'll let the people live and make their lives what they are. Right. And that's why someone like me goes, I don't want to ask for another law to be passed. Right. I want to fight all laws from being passed because those laws are just more overreach and whatever.
But we've got to,
but it's hard to stop that.
We've got to send a lot of conservative youngsters, and we're getting to the turnaround point of a generation in politics right now.
I think so.
I forget who it was that noted this the other day. It might have been Sam Harris, that all of the top candidates in the final four, they all would have been, well, let's see, I guess it was Bernie and Donald Trump and Mike Bloomberg and who is that guy that won? Joe Biden.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, he's easy to forget. But those four were the final four in the race, and any one of them that got elected would have been the oldest person ever to be elected to the White House.
That's right.
All four of them. So this is the last gasp, in a sense, of that political party, and they were able to squash down the AOC and the Squad people this time.
But
it's these people who are coming along
next.
That's right. You know, these young, very hip to technology, understand social media, and that's the group that's going to come out by the next time that we have a general election.
In that article, it even mentions that they were trying to get a message out. It might have been about mail-in voting was the safest way and best way to make sure your vote counts. And they said they got that seen through Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and Twitter over 1 billion times.
Yes.
See, they pushed a message that was false 1 billion times. They suppressed real information that would really might change the way you would vote. And that's what we're up against. And the people that are behind that are doing that, they are far left.
Well, have you
and they are going to be in control if we don't stop them.
Have you thought about how closely this looks like collusion?
How just a little bit.
Doesn't this look like, now they say several times in the article, the Biden administration didn't know about this. Right. This was all on the down low. But in the same way, this sounds like the way they manipulated all these different things. It sounds pretty much what they were accusing Trump of. And as you so often said, if you're wondering what they're up to, just look at what they're accusing us of.
They're the worst projectors in the world. That's exactly right.
One thing I need to ask our audience is it just me, or does the Kentucky boys like this sound funny when they say mail-in voting?
Mail-in voting.
I keep thinking
mail-in voting. They do.
I keep thinking every time you say melon voting.
Mail-in voting.
I keep thinking, oh man, they're voting with melons.
My Kentuckiness comes out when I get going. When I read my pieces that I write, my I don't know, my demeanor is a little bit more under control, but when I get going, I start to sound like my family back home, and before you know it, we'll be riding 4-wheelers.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna, and when we get done here, we're gonna go race quads up and down in the dirt out front.
We don't call them quads, we call them 4-wheelers.
4-wheelers.
No, I don't know, maybe that's changed by now. I've been out of Kentucky so long, but I think we should wrap this up.
Yeah.
I want to say that a special thank you to everyone who goes to Giving Fuel, everyone who went to Teespring and has bought a t-shirt or a mug. You guys can also send us pictures of that. I'm going to put a montage of that together, make a little
you wearing your
commercial, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate it so much. Anybody who PayPals us, buys Dave's albums, all that stuff.
Tell them about the way we upgraded.
Okay, yeah. So I basically had to do an upgrade at Giving Fuel so that whoever is doing a recurring donation and wants to change how much it is or wants to cancel it or any of that stuff, you now can go there and they'll ask you for a little bit of information, and then you can,
or wants to double.
Yeah, change it yourself. Yeah, you want to add like $1,000 a month. That's cool too, but you want to do that now. You don't have to contact us. I got that set up. It costs a little money, but I think we're there now. We can afford it a little bit just because.
Well, it's the right thing to do, and we didn't know when we signed up for Giving Fuel that it was going to be awkward for you guys that came in as a monthly subscriber to unsubscribe. So we've mentioned it a number of times that we don't feel weird about it, and those of you who have because of COVID or some other reason, time's gotten a little tight, and you write to us and we take care of it right away.
Yeah.
So usually you guys write to me, and then I forward it over to Jason because I don't have anything to do with Giving Fuel. I'm not trusted around the money.
That's not true, but yeah, I do it all. And like you said, I didn't know what I was doing. Just like this live stream, we don't know what we're doing. Like the fact that this channel's done as good as it has and has gone as far as it has at this point is kind of a surprise to both of us. Anyway.
Yeah, like you guys, some of you have noticed recently that that little circle by everything that is blue collar logic now has the truck in it with the light bulb in the back. And that was how many years ago that we did? 2.5 years ago now, when we went to YouTube?
Finally got it as our logo.
So we got that logo, and I remember vaguely Jason saying, should we put this the truck up there? And I go, I kind of like the one we have, but
then that was 2 years ago.
Then like just 2 years went by. And nobody could read it. It looks so much better now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I messaged him, said, hey, I changed that thing. He's like, I saw it. It looks good. And then that's the end of it, right?
It does, yeah. Then
we're really
just like that forever.
We're trying our best, but I'm working full time and doing these writing. I got a family. Dave's tired and old, so he's working hard. This guy rewrites pieces.
I have to take a nap every like 20 minutes.
This guy rewrites things over and over again to get his wording right and works his butt off. But we enjoy doing this. We can't thank you enough for all you guys who support us. And yeah, if you guys like this video, we'll try to get a little bit better, maybe get a theme song, maybe get some graphics. We'll figure out what's going on eventually.
Yeah, maybe we can figure out a way to have, maybe you can get the question feed to go onto another computer screen. Like maybe that could.
Well, if
I don't know.
If we did that thing where I can read it, I got pretty good eyes still. If we do that super chat, it'll stay up there long enough. I can read the questions, and we can do that. But yeah, I'm going to get a laptop actually now. I'm going to try to get a laptop so I can, be cool.
And now and again, speaking of, political people, I feel like I'm too old to go into politics, but I think Jason.
No,
man.
You
don't think?
They're just going to start digging up things on me. And he said this once in college. That guy made this joke that was inappropriate. Like it's just going to be a mess. Yeah. I'm not going to put my family through that. I'm doing my part.
I was pretty much in blackface for most of my youth.
For most of my youth. Every Halloween, Dave was the same guy.
But the thing is, I'm from the age, I'm of the age that I grew up with like buckwheat on the Spanky and Art Gang. So I was a buckwheat fan, and so I just dressed as buckwheat.
There you go.
It was an homage. It was not mockery.
Right. No, well, you're not allowed to do anything these days. You can't use certain words the way anybody else uses them. That's not disparaging at all. You can't. It's just they've told you can't say this. You can't say it. You can't dress this way. You can't dress this way. I mean, they go so far as to say like Taco Tuesday night. This is not even a Mexican restaurant. How can you do that? It's like, come on. I like tacos. That's why I want to do it, right? But that's somehow going to be my Hispanic wife is offended that I go somewhere the restaurant has a Taco Tuesday. Of course, she's not offended.
I just saw one of my neighbors, Miguel, who he runs a crew of guys, really hardworking dude, and a super nice guy. I saw him the other night. He was getting out of his truck, and I go, "How you doing, brother?" And he holds up a bag, and goes, "Taco Tuesday." So I mean, come on, you think Miguel's going to be upset if someone uses Taco Tuesday,
right? Of course not. But someone's, like you said earlier, someone's looking for a reason to be upset about something, the reason to change things, and a lot of this stuff they say in this article, and just in general, the left, they have to find a reason so that they can justify why they're changing something the way they want to change it.
I think that one of the challenges we're all going to have is to for God's sake, every time I mention talking to the liberals, I get this: I'm never talking to any liberals again. In fact, I'm moving away because I found out a liberal lives on my street. If we don't communicate, who's going to? And of course, the kids will go off to college. And see what happens with college professors. And I know a number of college professors. They go out. In fact, my son, mark my words, will become a college professor.
Yeah.
And
congratulations.
He just loves college. And so he's been in college for a while, and it took college about 8 years to turn him into a progressive, but the job is now done. And the thing is, he will learn all of this stuff. He's a plant biologist, and he'll learn all this stuff. He's a great guy. Hates me right now, but that'll pass. But he will. The thing is, he loves college so much, he's just going to stay on and teach college. Mm-hmm. So what happens is then by the time you get your politics given into you, you never go out into the world where you have to test those politics against what really works, like starting a business and then going, oh, okay, now I'm getting why regulation is kind of, I get why some people are against it. Oh, I'm understanding that the red tape can get out of control. I'm getting that, that a job creator is not necessarily the bad guy. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have that chance to do that. You stay in college in this protected environment. So you stay there and then it loops back down. And bit by bit, all of the people who turned into conservatives who used to stay and teach college, they've all left the university, and it washes around like a washing machine, like a dryer or something like that. So we're not going to get the colleges back. We're not going to get the colleges back. So we need to give the message to people we know in the neighborhood before they go off to college.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to sit, just say, hey, start talking values a little bit. My parents, who are widely acknowledged to be the greatest generation, I mean, they're the ones who went off to war to protect a way of life. Right now, we wear masks to protect a way of life. We go back into our homes. We retreat because we're afraid of a threat. I mean, they used to charge into machine gun fire. That was their way of being Americans. Now we mask ourselves down and lock ourselves into a closet.
We mask our 3-year-old.
Yeah, but if we don't communicate the simple values and in easy ways, tell young people, you're going to hear a lot of this stuff when you go off to college, but you're only going to hear one side of it. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a primer on it. And feel free to listen to things. I might not be right about everything, but here's the way I see things. And you're going to hear a lot of stories about how everybody who doesn't agree with what your college professor tells you is in some way a totalitarian or a Nazi. Or
you did a video. You did a video back in the day. It was like I don't know, hippies versus leftists versus progressives versus Democrats. I don't know. It was like you labeled the left in a way, and I think that's important to acknowledge. We all know the progressives that wrote this article that were talking that were in these organizations. We all know that you can't talk to them. There is no chance you're going to explain something. Oh, here's why lower taxes work. They're going to call you a racist. They're going to call you hate the poor. That's what they're going to do.
Right.
But we all know a guy who's not that political who votes Democrat. We all know a guy who is political who votes Democrat, who's a good guy. We have a couple of mutual friends. I played in a band with 4 liberals, and they're strong. They hated the conservatives in a way. They hated them. They didn't hate me.
They don't hate conservatives.
They don't hate conservatives.
They just strongly oppose them.
They oppose them at verbally if they can, right? Yeah. But I had to talk with a couple of them one night, and I just talked to them and asked them some questions, and we found some common ground. And it's because they're good dudes. I was in a band with some good dudes. A couple of them have passed away now, but they were good dudes. We hung out. I loved them like my brothers, and we could have that conversation. Those are the people we have to have conversations with. When we talk about having a conversation with my liberal friend or this guy, we're not talking about those leftist progressive out there that are saying these crazy things. We're talking about people that you talk to every day, or you talk to your neighbor. Just have conversations, right, and let them know, as Dave will say sometimes, you might be conservative, but you're a good guy. You will help your neighbor.
Well, and as long as we're not meeting their opposition to us with the sense that, okay, now we want to annihilate you. I mean, we've gone from a place of wanting to win the battle of influence in the government toward our way of life, and it's gone to, well, job one is to eliminate the other party, to annihilate the other party. Mm-hmm. And that's not really it. Anybody who's been ever been married for a period of time understands that life is full of compromises. She doesn't think quite the way you do. If you're female, he doesn't think quite the way you are. And over time, you realize, okay, I can cooperate with people who look at the same thing and see it from a different angle naturally. And then you go, okay, great. Well, you're seeing it from that angle. I'm seeing it from this angle. You've got a point. There is that point I missed. And they go, yeah, you got a point too. So you can have some sort of, which is what this Braver Angels thing is trying to do that I'm involved with now. And what's happening with Braver Angels is there's way more left-wing people joining Braver Angels, which they know is organization that is put together for the express purpose of people talking across the divide. And they're having trouble getting as many Republicans to join this thing, even though the national director of it is John Wood Jr., who happens to be African American, but he's a very well-spoken conservative. So their top guy is John Wood Jr., a conservative, and they can't find any Republicans that are willing to join. So when I figured this out, I joined. And the first person that I met was Craig Lincoln, who reached out to me, and we did a little talk on the air. But then the second person I met was my very good friend, Olivia Brownlee, who lives in Spokane, Washington. And we used to play music together all the time. I don't even know what Olivia's politics are, and she's not spilling the beans. But she's one of the most important people in Braver Angels in terms of the music end of it, because they're doing a music thing as well. And now I'm involved in that. So I'm trying to be involved with people, even though I know they're going to say, okay, Dave, you got to go in this room and talk with all these Democrats. I'll go, just point me at it.
Yeah.
Just point me at it. I'll go in there and I'll say, just tell me what you believe, and let's talk about it. And I'm not worried that I'm going to be negatively influenced. I spent 35 years over there. I left because nothing was working. So I have arguments that I can apply.
What's funny is, your walkaway video, when you did your walkaway video, a lot of people would ask me, why don't I do my walkaway video?
You never walked away.
And it was like, yeah, so when I was 4 years old, I thought mommy and daddy should pay for the rest of my life. And that's it. I shouldn't ever have to work or do anything.
Yeah.
But then I became 5 years old and I realized, like I never walked away. I actually became, I went from, I think, more conservative to a bit more libertarian in my thinking. And I think, let me get back to one point. We're talking about talking to the left. We should talk to the left that will talk, the people who are honest brokers in talking. But it doesn't mean we have to compromise on saying, hey, no, that's unconstitutional. You guys can't decide to do that.
Right.
I understand you like that idea, but you can't decide to do that. We have to stick to our values and our principles. But we do have to talk with people, because, you never hear, very rarely, of someone saying, I was a Republican, I was a conservative for 40 years, and then some guy opened my eyes and I became a far leftist. Like, it never goes that way.
Go in that direction.
It's like 90 whatever percent goes the other direction. And it's because we're making arguments that work, that if they will look for a moment in their own life, they'll go, oh yeah, I remember when I used to drink a lot and I used to not really go to work and I wouldn't do a good job. And then I decided, oh man, I'm having a family. I got to do something. And what do you know? I got a better job and I started doing things that was helping my community, and people started to respect me and so on. And they realized I did that. And then they become conservatives because they go, oh, I was the failure. Right. So yeah, we got to keep talking to people.
When I started talking about the world's greatest generation, that's what I meant to be approaching, and I went off on another tank.
Well,
but I meant to say that my parents didn't communicate their values to me, because it was coming up at a time when just my older brother was running off and going down to Sunset Strip and hanging out down there and, watching the Doors in concert and things like that. And they're going, oh, everyone's heading off to San Francisco and doing drugs, and we never see them again. And so they were saying, well, Kate, my older sister, and Dave, they're coming through high school, and my parents just dialed back their values. Instead of standing up to us, they stopped standing up to us because they were afraid we'd run off into the greater culture and they'd never see us again. So my parents became very, very sort of hard to nail down. It's like, I used to joke to my wife about this. I was saying, by the time our kids become obnoxious teenagers, they won't have the slightest idea what I stand for. They won't know how to rebel against me. It'll be great. But my parents actually did that in real life. They stopped advocating for their values. They took their eye off the ball, and they shouldn't have had to say, no, we forbid you from going to the rock concert where you will see people smoking marijuana. But like I told my son, my son came to me when he was 15 years old and said, Dad, I'm considering, that's how he talks, I'm considering trying marijuana. And I said, sit down. So he sits down and I go, okay, here's the thing. if you're going to go someplace and you really want to remember it later, don't smoke. Because you won't remember it later. It won't kill you, but don't do that. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah, like I lived in Hawaii and I don't remember anything because I was stoned so much when I was over there. I barely remember probably the greatest year in my life I have. It's just like there's just this foggy bank there in my mind where that bunch of memories should be. And I told my son about that and he goes, well, I don't think I want to do that. And little while later, he was, started taking interest in school. And I said, you're doing great. Just don't smoke weed at school because you're going to lose all these gains. And then pretty soon he's in college and he's off. I don't think my son has ever smoked weed yet. I didn't say don't smoke weed. I said, here's the up and the downside. And so if we just say, okay, here's the up and the downside. I understand that you want to help Black people, but for instance, but you have to be careful, though, not to make them dependent on you because you wouldn't want like to help one of your friends to then make her so she couldn't do her own thing, would you?
So she lives in
Oh,
your
no,
house
I never
forever,
want
right?
to do that. So make sure you don't go that hard in the paint. Make sure you don't go to the place where people start depending on you. You want to make sure you're always making people able rather than being an enabler.
Well, I got a question kind of off topic, but back to your best year of your life in Hawaii.
I don't remember anything.
That you don't remember about it. But would it have been the best year of your life if you wouldn't have been stoned the whole time? That's a good question.
That's a really good point.
That's a good question. I don't know. You don't remember it.
Yes, I'm surprised my son didn't come up with that and ask me.
I heard a story about real quick, and we got to get out of here. We got some more work to do.
Yeah,
we edit his video.
Edit that video.
Yeah, I think it's Def Leppard, the band Def Leppard. Their guitarist CC DeVille. He doesn't.
That wasn't Def Leppard, CC DeVille. He was in Poison.
Poison. That's right. You're right. So
young people don't know anything.
I'm not a big rock guy, I guess, but he doesn't remember any of the concerts, the big shows, and everything. And they were doing this like little revival tour after well after their big run, and he's playing like to 5,000 people. And he's like, this is awesome. And they're like, we sold out stadiums, man. Big, huge stadiums. You don't remember none of it?
CC DeVille he's really happy to be on the county fair circuit.
That's right. Everybody else is hating it. He's out there like, this is awesome. He doesn't remember any of it.
Okay, guys. Anyway, well, thank you. I'm sorry we couldn't see more of your questions.
We'll do it. We'll figure that
we'll get
super chat out. And thanks. Like I said, we can't thank you enough for all you guys who support us. And we're just going to keep going and keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, man.
All right. This is how it ends.
And sorry if I talk too much. That's the thing I do.
Bye, guys.